Cheer cheer, got another game review for you. This time we're taking a look at Giant Squid Sword of the Sea. I didn't really go into this one with many expectations, as I haven't really played any Giant Squid games before, although I know of them and I've seen some gameplay. But as it was a day one release on PlayStation Plus, I thought I'd give it a shot. Can't say with utmost certainty because I've not played other Giant Squid games. I think Sword of the Sea is similar in the fact that it hasn't really got much narrative. There's no dialogue to guide you, there's not even any waypoints. All you have to guide you is the environment and the music. And although I appreciate that choice, you are sometimes left wondering what this studio might be able to do if they were to, add dialogue and add more narrative to the story. But even without any dialogue, the themes are very obvious, restoring beauty to a broken world. And in doing so, it allows the character to rediscover the wonders of the past. But that is about the extent of the narrative. So we shall move on to the gameplay. The core mechanic, obviously, is riding your sword around like a surfboard or a skateboard. And I must say, it's quite brilliant. It keeps you engaged even though there's not that much happening. Moving about feels really fluid. Carving the water or riding the walls, it all just feels really nice to do. There are some tricks you can earn, but because you can't fall off or bail, essentially, there's no real risk, which means there's also no real reward. The tricks feel very much like an afterthought. Another mechanic that felt a bit like an afterthought was the puzzles. They weren't very puzzling. The majority of them were just find 3 things to activate in an area and then go to the gate which is opened. It wasn't like they were bad, but I expected them to evolve as you progress through the game, but this really wasn't the case. Now, even though the tricks and the puzzles felt like an afterthought, this really wasn't a problem, because the beauty of the game lies in the exploration of these wondrous environments. Now, although the game hasn't got the greatest graphics ever, the visuals are still stunning in their own right. Although the environment's vast, it's full of detail. You have rolling sands that move like water, lonely ruins, giant leviathan-like creatures drifting across the horizon. It was brilliant how the areas could one moment feel ancient and lonely, and the next minute feel so vibrant and alive. And this is helped by the lighting and the cel-shaded style, which brings a timeless quality. The sort of game that will still look nice in 20 years. Where this game really excelled for me was the atmosphere and the pacing. Between the music and the fluidity of the movement, it would put you in an almost trance-like state. And when one area was becoming a bit tiresome, you'd move on to the next one. It would be a whole fresh new environment of, from the desert to the icy caves or ancient ruins reminiscent of Egypt. As I say, this isn't the type of game I'd usually play. I'd much prefer like a character, story-driven game. But there was something about this, I just couldn't put it down. Another cool little touch was the haptic feedback. You could really feel the different surfaces as you were gliding across them. Whether it was the sensation of sliding across sand, skimming across water, or even moving across the roof tiles of a building. One of the stranger pleasures of playing Sword of the Sea is how it often reminded me of older games. Now obviously it won't have the same effect on everybody. For instance, there were certain stretches of the game when you were soaring alongside schools of fish and riding a dolphin, and it really had me feeling like the same serene feeling as I got playing Echo the Dolphin when I was a kid. And then in the final sequence with I suppose you could call it the last boss, has you spinning around in a tube, very reminiscent of the bonus levels in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And obviously the grinding and using the half pipes, like Tony Hawk. And then certain bits of platforming that reminded me of games like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. Not only was it the gameplay elements, I feel the music did it as well. Whether or not the music was actually inspired by some older games, I don't know, but it certainly had me thinking about them. These moments of deja vu weren't distracting at all. In fact, I'd say they enriched the experience. It made a game that was both new to me as a game and in style of game feel almost familiar. And I think I've glazed the game quite enough. I should probably mention some of the weaker points. The main one being that the game is very short, especially for what it's priced at. Luckily I got this with PS Plus, so I had no gripe whilst playing it. If I had have paid, I probably would have been a little bit upset. But to be honest, I wouldn't have recommended making the game longer. I would just bring the price tag down, because as much as I did enjoy the game, if it had gone on much longer, it probably would have started getting very tedious. Another issue I had was the difficulty. There wasn't really anything that was even remotely challenging. Now I understand that it's an exploration game in essence, but they could have thrown in a few little challenges on the side, just to spice things up a bit. But none of this stopped me enjoying the game. So let's sum it all up then. Sword of the Sea does some things brilliantly and others less so. The visuals and the atmosphere are consistently gorgeous, the traversal's awesome, and the music is fantastic. On the other hand, the narrative is thin, the puzzles are repetitive, and the game is extremely short for the price. That being said though, anybody who has it on PS Plus or can get it for cheap, I think it's well worth your time. Especially to anybody that enjoys those atmospheric exploration games, or just to anybody who wants to lose themselves to a relaxing game for a few hours. You'll definitely feel less stressed than you would coming out of a game of Battlefield where you've just been sniped in the head 3,000 times. With that thought, I will leave it there. Hope this review can be helpful to somebody. If you can, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one.